are so excited to bring back our annual flagship event of AWS India Summit to Bangalore after several years. And when I landed in Bangalore about late evening, day before yesterday, it just struck me. And I was thinking of this morning. 16th of May is the day, exactly 13 years ago, when I actually flew to Bangalore to join the company in my New Year orientation. We had very, very few customers then, a few developers and startups. We had no employees in AWS India. We had a low single-digit number of employees across Asia Pacific. And I was cautiously optimistic about this business of web services and cloud computing that would be revolutionizing the industry apparently back then. But back then, we just didn't know we would reach here 13 years later, where hundreds and thousands of technologies across startups and across all industries, enterprises, SMBs, ISVs, et cetera, would revolutionize their platforms, their culture and businesses alike, working with our platform. Right? So it's been a fascinating journey so far, and it's been incredible to be part of that journey because of you, customers. And we believe, irrespective of what's happened in the last 13 years, it's just still the beginning. It's still day one. We believe there's a lot more innovation that's still yet to be done in the coming years. The keynote we thought is divided into 3 parts today. What we thought would be appropriate for this audience is rapid innovation, GenAI, and modernization. I thought, given that I'm lucky to actually see a lot of customers across Asia Pacific and worldwide, I thought I'll probably give you a small preview and insights into some of the innovation that we are seeing with customers across the world and emerging tech trends. And then we'll obviously have our local Indian customers talk to us in person, on stage, across these 3 sections. And we thought that would be a good combination. Now, back to basics. Not the only one, but one of the fundamental underlying principles of innovation that it's based on is data. Over the years, that's not changed. In the last 13, 14, 15 years, data is the basis on which a lot of innovation happens. The thing that's changed is obviously the velocity, volume, the sources of data, and the way it's been consumed in real time by different technologies. But that underlying principle hasn't changed. And when you talk to our customers and talk about innovation, what I see is, while there's a lot of innovation happening, the problems that are being solved, in generally a lot of times, are the same old problems that have existed in those businesses respectively. It's just a better way of solving those problems till something iteratively better comes, and then better comes, and better comes. But the baseline problems that they're solving across those industries remain same. And it reminds me of our Amazon flywheel that, as the rumor goes, was drawn by our founder, Jeff Bezos, on a tissue paper 25 years ago, stating that this will be our business model. Because it's human nature, like if you meet anyone today, in the technology field or otherwise, most people will ask you as to what's going to change in the next year, what's going to change in the next 5 years, what's changing in the next 10 years. And I can bet you, almost no one ever asks me the question as to what's not going to change. Because you can base a business model on things that do not change and then iterate on innovation to actually solve those problems. And as an example of the Amazon flywheel, the Amazon.com flywheel, some of our problems we've had have always remained same, which is give customers better experience. That would lead to more customers coming on our platform. That would lead more sellers selling their products on our platform. That would lead to economies of scale and lower cost structures that we would pass on to customers. This was true 25 years ago. 25 years from now, I find it impossible that there'll be a customer that comes shopping on Amazon.com and they're going to tell you that, you know what, Amazon is great. I wish it was a little more expensive. Never going to happen. Impossible. Or Amazon.com is great. I wish the customer experience was a little worse than what it is today. Impossible. Never going to happen. Right? And so some of these fundamentals will never ever change, and that's true for any industry with their own flywheels that they have. And as an example, 3D printing, it actually went through the vogue when it became very popular a few years ago, and then it kind of went down in terms of the noise it created. A large part of the reason for that was it was considered too commercial grade. It was too industrial grade, and it was not domestic enough. It didn't fly in. It's again come back in the vogue, and the reason for that is, one of the reasons for that is, if you have to actually print a really large object like the podium on the stage or anything, you need a 3D printer that is as big as the object that you're printing, because that's how the robotic arm moves. And so through iterative innovation, what we now have is software libraries that will actually slice and dice the image that you want to print into smaller parts. You then actually have a smaller 3D printer that prints those individual parts, and then you actually join them like blocks. And so 5, 7, 8 years from now, for all you know, each one of us might have a portable 3D printer at home, and we could be even printing our phones at home. Phone manufacturers would patent their chips or their motherboards, etc., and you would actually print a design of the phone based on your preferences, for example. And so a lot of e-commerce retailers, including Amazon, probably are toying with the idea potentially that you would take this concept of a portable 3D printer, and if you have last-mile deliveries happening across towns and cities, and if there's an order that comes in by someone that's made an order just now, if it's printable, the person driving the truck would receive the order, pass it on to the Wi-Fi connected 3D printer on the back of the truck. The object, if it's printable, that's been ordered, would be printed, and then it would be delivered immediately by a drone or even a human being. Now, apart from sounding futuristic and fascinating, etc., the real reason why anyone would do this is to save real estate space. Because real estate CapEx investments are one of the biggest investments that retailers have in their warehouses and fulfillment centers. So if you change the supply chain of actually printing objects as the orders are coming in, you're doing real-time supply chain demand and demand forecasting and demand in real time, which means you will actually save one of the most boring problems and an important problem that's existed in the industry, which is to save real estate space. In the financial space, again, there's a problem that has always existed and will always exist, which is fraud detection and prevention. Right? It's going to be always ongoing. While people argue that with technology, you can actually have better security, you have to understand that bad actors on the internet almost have the same access to technology that you have. So it's always a cat and mouse game. And new data, historic trends of fraud prevention and detection have relied on layers and layers of multi-factor authentication, or if you're traveling in another country, which is considered more risky, you would obviously fall into problems where an authentic transaction gets blocked because you're in a country of high risk. So it's not friction-free to actually get that security. And what New Data, which is a MasterCard company that runs on us, is doing is that trying to make the entire experience friction-free without you having to get through multiple levels of multi-factor authentication without compromising on security. So for example, it actually detects the way you type your passwords, the way you log into your mobile app, how do you swipe it, and it actually creates a digital pattern knowing what the norm is for you, versus if there was to be a spoofed or a digital transaction, a fraudulent transaction by someone else. And so without actually interjecting and making your experience with friction and disrupting your customer experience, it actually knows the way you type in, the way you log in, etc., so it knows the difference. It's easier said than done. They have to process petabytes and petabytes of data every day, which is stored on S3, and then they have Kinesis streams and EMR on which they process this data. So a great example of how they're solving an age-old problem, which is always going to exist in the industry, but in a least disruptive manner to customers. With all the talk about GenAI, which we will talk about in the next section, we released a service which went actually quietly. Most of our customers didn't notice it. In November, we made an announcement, and this is an AWS service, not Amazon. We made an announcement on Amazon One Enterprise. Why we made that was with challenges in terms of security, privacy, and legal norms in certain countries around facial authentication. We have figured out that biometrics from a palm perspective are extremely secure. So the Amazon Go stores or Just Walkout stores in the US used to use Amazon One for convenience, so you can just have your palm registered against your credit card or your Amazon account, and then when you just put your palm without touching the pedestal in the air with a small distance, it'll actually open up. That same technology is being exposed as a service on AWS, and we are accepting private beta requests from customers since November. And the reason we chose this is because we have done hundreds and thousands of tests where this tech is much, much, much more secure than your retina, your facial vectors, or even your fingerprint. And it's more unique than the human DNA. I've had friends, without getting into details, who've shown me they've had identical twins, but it actually with facial recognition on phones, it actually can fool your facial recognition. And so it's more unique than facial recognition and your fingerprint. And there are other legal norms that it complies with. The lighting on the computer vision that reads your palm is just about enough so that it reads the palms and your ridges and your vein information, but doesn't categorize the information into racial backgrounds, color, skin tone, etc., etc. So it actually passes all the legal tests. And so we believe from a security perspective, this is great. And this is how the machine looks. It's slightly longer than a credit card reader. A lot of private beta customers in the United States have started using it for corporate offices. Register your palm against your ID, and without having the headache of using a lot of plastic and your badging, and when it doesn't work, have the operational overhead using it, you just use your palm to enter buildings, or retail stores, or even to make payments after the one-time registration. It's an AWS service. It will be available on the console once it comes out. From a security perspective, because it uses all our security modules and our services, it's as secure as our customers need it to be. So watch out for more in this space. Smart cities have been developing for a long, long time, so there's nothing new about it, but we are seeing trends where smart cities are going deeper into individual use cases. For example, there are some cities which have actually come up with this ambient pole, a really tall pole, 9 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet in length, which can be viewed from a long distance. And the idea is if you have a landscape where there's a lot of people shopping or having food in restaurants, having a large desert. In the past, if you had to take a tram or a bus that's arriving at the stop to run, you wouldn't want to take a chance, so you would either arrive early, or if you're rushing, you might get late and miss your tram or a bus. And so what the ambient bus pole has done is basically had this huge pole with the ambient light, LED, which can be viewed from the distance in daytime or nighttime. It has a decrementing value in terms of how many minutes are left. And so I was initially skeptical that this would work in certain cities because most smart cities, if it's truly smart, would have a mobile app transmitting the APIs to the bus. Turns out humans are much more visual beings, and rather than actually having to take out their mobile phones and viewing the bus timings, this ambient bus pole creates a visual that they can turn their neck, see it, and they did some research that it apparently optimized underspending or overspending in restaurants and shopping till the last minute, till the bus or tram arrives, because they were actually watching the pole. And so that's where smart cities are going in. Computing in the healthcare space is increasing by a ton, right? And the reason for that is the technology in the healthcare space has optimized over time to such an extent that it's become cheaper to process data. 10 years ago, to process 1 million base pairs of DNA, so your DNA sequencing genome, to process 1 million base pairs of DNA, the cost of the experiment was at about $1,000. Today, that exact same experiment costs about 10 cents. And so what it's doing is it's encouraging companies like Unilever to run different permutation combination because it costs nothing to actually run the experiment. And one of the things they've discovered is when human beings emit odor from the mouth, if you have not brushed properly in the morning, or if you're sweating a lot, your body odor, it's actually unique to your DNA type. We don't realize it, but that's probably 7.5 billion DNA types you're talking about. And so what they're trying to work on a principle is that in the future, you would actually walk into a pharmacy store, have your DNA swab taken, and then 3 days later collect a toothpaste or a deodorant that's specific to your DNA type and specific to your odor type as well. Sounds pretty personalized, but we're talking about personalizing 7.5 billion people. But that's happening because these experiments obviously take no time, and it's happening on the cloud because it's easier to do so. From healthcare to sports, I don't understand a lot about American football. I'm just like you. I understand cricket. But then let's just say American football is a big sport in the United States. And in the most recent Super Bowl, Amazon Prime Video was actually streaming this with AI, computer vision, and GenAI in the mix. So it was giving viewers who were watching this on TV an extremely immersive experience as if you were watching it from the sidelines like the coach sees it. So it was preempting defensive players, the blitz, the quarterbacks, and the different players and what movements they will make based on what the coach sees, and they were predicting it by encircling these in the right way. And so it gave viewers a much more immersive experience watching from the TV with GenAI in the mix in real-time live. Similarly, in the NBA, which is also a big sport in the United States, what they're trying to do is make real-time decisions on substitutes. Usually, in most sports, you would actually look at post-match videos and then look at defects and then obviously make strategies for substituting players depending on how you're winning or losing. Turns out the wristbands, the elbow bands that you see are generally IoT devices which are measuring pulse rates and heart rates of these players. So they're experimenting, saying when the players are moving, they found a relationship between players who were actually in sync with their heart rates versus players that were not in sync from the same team. So now you have coaches on the sidelines looking at this and viewing the real-time data and making substitutes based on how much sync or out of sync players are, making them actually make decisions in real time to have a better chance of winning. In the transportation industry, everyone likes talking about electric cars and autonomous vehicles, which is true. It is disrupting the autonomous vehicle industry. A lot of people don't talk about disruption coming from places where you'd least expect it. For example, high-speed trains. The Japan Central Railway Shinkansen, which has an existing bullet train that runs at 280, 300, 320 kilometers per hour tops, right, which is super fast, has been in operation for many years. What they're doing is taking a lot of physics internally to it through HPC clusters to the next level. And I was privileged to actually visit this would-be customer that they're testing AWS on. That's the train actually running at 500 kilometers per hour, literally. This is a camera feed from in front of the train. There's a test track between Tokyo and Osaka. And the train was super stable. I was actually walking in with our customer across the train with the padding and the noise cancellation. It was super stable. And so it was going up and down on a 42-kilometer track in a few minutes at 500 kilometers per hour. And the technology is phenomenal. They have taken liquid nitrogen, taken it to a temperature of minus 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which kind of gives the magnets on which the trains run on the rail lines different properties. And in theory, it can go to about 700, 800, 900 kilometers per hour. But right now, they're testing between 500 and 600 kilometers per hour. There's a lot of physics that's involved, but they're taking that physics to a lot of computing power on HPC to actually run this. And by 2027, the transportation time between Tokyo and Osaka and a few other cities will be cut down by about 60, 70%, because it's just going to double, triple the speed of trains, which is going to disrupt that industry. Lastly, since we're talking about transportation and making connectivity easier, we all believe that we're living in a much more connected planet than we were 30 years ago. The reality is there's lots of businesses across the world that still need connectivity at the right places where they don't have, which you don't think about every day. Which is why we launched Amazon Project Kuiper about a couple of years ago. We made the announcements. We launched payloads and satellites in space. And the idea is, with Project Kuiper, it gives you low-orbit satellites for internet connectivity. Imagine ships and oil rigs far away in the middle of Atlantic or Pacific that require internet connectivity for processing at the edge. Imagine workers in coal mines in Western Australia working in the coal mines for days and days without connectivity, so they can't reach out to their families. And one of the would-be customers that's considering this told us that even if you have a minimal level of connectivity for a few hours a day, it would enable those workers to make a WhatsApp video call or a FaceTime video call to their families, increasing their morale. So basic things like that. Or countries that are neighbors that have physical lease line connectivity passing through those countries, and you could have a situation where your neighboring country isn't very friendly with you, and so you would actually have a physical line coming in. The bypassing of the non-friendly country would happen via the satellite, and then again, you will get connectivity to the next country across the continent, so on and so forth. And then airlines when you fly and Wi-Fi connectivity inside that. So those are kind of use cases that we're actually getting. It is fascinating, it is an exciting time, and I hope we will continue seeing our customers iterating on this innovation. And remember what I said, which is when you innovate, the problems that you're solving in generally remain same for your industry. The way you solve them for your end customers obviously keeps changing over time with the evolution of data. This is obviously leading to lots and lots of consumption of AWS platform, which excites us because we are always learning from our customers by taking feedback. And just before I leave the stage for this section, I'll give you a quick statistic. At the end of 2022, IDC predicted that there's probably between 96 to 100 zettabytes of data that was generated across this planet over the internet. Does anyone even know what is a zettabyte? No? A zettabyte is a billion terabytes, for example, and there were about close to 100 zettabytes of data generated. And what that's leading to is in the public cloud, a lot of this processing happening because it's easier, cheaper, and faster to do so, to the point where in 2022, we kind of tried to make a correlation. On an average, on a daily basis, on an average, across 2022, AWS launched across all its customer base 70 million EC2 instances every single day. So there were 70 million EC2 instances that were being launched every single day across the whole of 2022. The 2023 stats aren't out yet. That's it, what I have in this section. I'll be back in a few minutes from now for our next sections, but let's hear from our customers now. So it's my pleasure to invite a company that's probably a household name for the last 20, 30 years in India, Reema Jain, the CIO and CDO of Hero Motors.
Good morning. All right, good to see so many techies dreading the Bangalore traffic in the morning and coming all over to Whitefield. Feels like traveling to Delhi is much more easier than coming to Whitefield to me. All right, good to see also a lot of familiar faces. That's my team there. Hello, guys. So moving on from connected Earth to connected vehicles, that is the topic I'm going to talk about. But before that, I want to just quickly introduce my company. I know Shantanu told that it is a household name, but a little bit about the company. We are the #1 two-wheeler manufacturers in the world. We are present in 47 countries. We have a customer base of around 116 million. We touch across 9,000 touch points. And that's not all. We have a revenue of around 40,000 crores. And just 2 days back, we hit a market cap of 1 lakh crores in the history of Hero. We manufacture a humble Splendor, HF Deluxe, 2 powerful bikes like HDX 440 as well as Maverick. As an organization, we are moving away from being just an auto company to an auto tech company. And that's why technology is so important, and a partnership like AWS is very, very important to us. We are moving away from just doing digital to being a truly digital company. While we do this, we are changing gears every day, digitizing the entire ecosystem, starting from the R&D to manufacturing quality supply chain, then changing the customer experience. I know Shantanu spoke about personalization. We are building personalized contextual experience in every touch point of our customers. We are also, not only this, we are also digitizing our dealer distributors and, of course, driving operational efficiency in whatever we do. I want to a little bit talk about, it's not only about digitizing, it's about redefining the ways we work at Hero. Through this technology, we are redefining how work is getting done at Hero. I want to share a few examples. Earlier, when we used to have an issue, when there used to be, a little bit noise in the market, the noise will come from our ecosystem, from our dealers, distributor, goes to the quality, goes to, R&D, and it will take us months and months to really solve some of those issues. Now, through Product 360, we get real-time insights of what's really happening with our customer, what is really happening in the market, and through those insights, which we call Product 360, we are taking actions which are faster than before. The other example I want to share is, we're doing away with all the user manuals, those big bulky books which comes with your bikes. If a customer earlier has to know how do I, change my spark plug, or why my vehicle is making a noise, they have to go to some page 300, paragraph 30, and find out what needs to happen. Now, as we're doing away with user manual, through GenAI, the customer gets real-time information in a Q&A basis and asks a question, and the bot replies back. We are also redefining and digitizing our dealers and distributors. As I was sharing, we are also enabling them through new tools and technology. So on the fly, as the customer walks into your showroom, the DSC knows about the dealer sales executive, knows about the profile of the customers, and provide a custom sales pitch to the dealer sales executive so that they can make a pitch. That's why I say it's not only about digitizing, it's about redefining and reimagining the work which is getting done at Hero. While we do all that, it is very important that digital helps drive revenue, right? That is very, very important. Our CFO won't give this money if we don't, show them the true revenue impact. So there are three key products which we have been working on. One is, we have a 116 million customer base. And what do? Everyone talks about data monetization, asset monetization. We have an app called Hero app. This is the one app which is your post-purchase companion. As the customer walks out of the showroom, this is an app the customer carries. And through this, he or she can do any activity which is needed post the purchase of the bike. We are the #1 auto OEM app, a Play Store rating of 4.6, and install base of 5 million, as well as monthly active users of 1 million, right? So this is our asset which is helping us to monetize, drive subscription, drive revenue. Quickly, moving on. The other product we have is called eFin, which is an aggregator platform, which we call retail finance, aggregating all the NBFC, aggregating all the banks, and then helping customers to choose which financing options to go. And last but not the least, digitizing the spare parts, through e-commerce as well as D2C. So these are the three key work streams where it's not only driving efficiencies in the ecosystem, it's about driving the top line in the business. All right? So zooming in, the work which we are doing alongside with AWS, which is creating a world-class connected platform. I spoke about an app a little bit. So think about the app, right? It is the app for customers to interact and do anything post-purchase. Now, our vehicles are getting more and more intelligent. It's not that earlier they were not churning out data, but as Shantanu was saying, now this data coming in to the cloud, making it really, really powerful. We are applying algorithm to the data, unlocking a lot of use case, power of our app alongside with the data which is coming from the platform is helping us to unlock a lot of use cases and drive that customer experience. And that's what we are very excited about. Your app or your bike now becomes smartphone on the wheels because you have all the data and you can unlock a lot more use cases. How we're building a little bit on the architecture. So on the edge, which is on the bike, you have an IoT client, which ultimately, sending the data back to the cloud. The way vehicle is designed, there are multiple ECUs in the vehicle, which we call electronic control unit. They send the data back to the telematic control unit, and then through edge, that's going up to your cloud. The vehicle is provisioned, which is registered that this is the right vehicle for the cloud. Then the data is transformed into a meaningful format, right? A lot of time, the vehicle language is not understood by application, so the data is converted into meaningful format, and ultimately, algorithms are applied in the processing layer and then exposed back into the meaningful use cases back to wherever we want to consume. Either it's app, either it's analytics layer, or wherever, right? This is a layer where we expose the use cases and then can get consumed by any of the platforms. All right? So as we do all this, now I talked about tech, what does it mean for the customers? For customer, it means it is going to give them advanced security and safety features, right? Just imagine a situation where you have given your bike to a friend or to someone, in the family, and you don't want that person to go out of a certain area, right? You can set your geofence, and if the person move out of a certain area, it gives you an alert. It has also advanced safety feature. Either it's, accident alerts, like when you fall down, you have a trip, it will send a message to your near and dear one that there is a problem. Why don't you look into it? So there's a lot of safety and security features which is getting built on top of what I spoke about. The second one is charging ecosystem, especially with EV. Not only tells you your state of your battery, but it also helps you to find the nearby charging station, helps you to charge, and things like that. Peace of mind through roadside assistance. OTA, it is very, very important, capability. Like how it happens on the phone, right? You get over-the-air updates, for your bug fixes, for new features. Similarly, now in your vehicle, you get over-the-air updates whenever there's a new feature which is logged in, and you don't have to walk into the service station to consume some of them. And onboard navigation. I think all of you know about it. And ultimately, based on the driver behavior, you're customizing the features. So if my behavior is, if I'm giving my vehicle, let's say to my dad, and I don't want my dad to go above 50 kilometers an hour, right? I can change the profile and create a profile for him that, okay, you know what? If there is if he exceeds above 50 kilometer an hour, please give me an alert. So that's what the customized features really mean. So again, taking what we are building in connected and ultimately looking at some of the use cases which ultimately enhance the consumer life is what we are right now building. With all this, of course, we're unlocking a lot of value. You know, we are looking at monetizing some of them because as the data is coming, as we know driver behavior, there's a lot of use cases we can do in order to monetize, driving cost efficiencies. And ultimately, I already spoke about rider experience, safety features, convenience, right? So all that, you know, coming together as we're building the platform. So that's all I had to share. I have just a quick video for you guys to look at how this all comes together in a vehicle.
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Rajat. I lead tech at India's largest or leading multi-gaming skill platform, Games 24/7. And we'll talk about some of the things that we have done over our journey around pioneering science of gaming. But before we do that, a quick intro from a company video perspective there.
From inception to becoming the leading online gaming company in India, the single biggest force behind our success has been our core operating ethos, the science of gaming.
It's actually very simple and therefore very effective.
But what is the scientific way of running our gaming business?
First, a high level of objectivity and a deep respect for what data says.
Secondly, something we refer to as why centricity, which is a constant appetite to ask why.
And who are we doing all of this for? Our players, of course.
We have and we will continue to invest heavily to build capabilities in automation and intelligence.
But all of this is meaningless unless you have the right team. Amazing companies are built by amazing teams.
Not by amazing amounts of capital, not by amazing ideas, not even by amazing individuals.
We are the science of gaming. We are Games 24/7.
So that's a firm belief that this company, when we work and create new engaging experience, the firm belief in science of gaming is what has kept us apart from in terms of providing the most engaging experience. When we talk about science of gaming, the three key pillars that at least we look at is one from a user perspective, that every interaction that user does on your platform, user is telling something about his or her preference. What do they like? What do they want from the experience? So when, Shantanu talked about data, the amount of data that user generates as he or she interacts with the platform is a very, very key input at that. And once you have that data, how do you use that data to say that why a particular behavior happened? If user did something, why he or she did something, what does that mean for us? For example, like when we say why, we don't only question our failures to say, most of the times, you guys, like when we run an experiment, you fail something, you go and understand the failure. What we also do is, it's not just failures. If you succeed, or if your success was more than what your expectations, what is user telling you about that? How do you go deep into that and then use that to even accelerate your success? And the last part is objectivity. When we say objectivity, it's again like we internally say that you should value your beliefs. You should have a very, very firm value in your beliefs. But in face of data, be willing to change them. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. So even when we believe it's the best game that we have put out in the market or the best feature we have put out in the market, but if our data says D1 by D1, D7, D15 retention, it's not working, we're humble enough to pull that back and, if needed, kill the game as well there. You combine these three, and then there is a flywheel that we talk about, where like it will give you better user insights, your questioning, better experiments, and better data there. Now the part is, you have this data, how do you use this to now hyper-personalize that? When we say we hyper-personalize the user journey, we do it by capturing thousands of data points, thousands of customer features that we take about. Now, you use that and you say that, how do I use my science models to customize that experience? When we talk about science models, most of the times people talk about how do I engage a user more. Not only we do that, to say that, okay, as a user, you came to my platform, what kind of game will you like to play? What kind of offers do you like? Do you like to give me, like me to give you a tournament ticket or something else? But we also, as part of responsible gameplay, have science models that predict overindulgence. When we see a user like if we see a pattern where you are overindulging, can I prompt it? Can I guide you to say that this is happening and prevent overindulgence from happening there? We talked about fraud protection, like how do I make sure that the bad actors in the ecosystem I can detect and I can protect my customer from those bad actors there. Not only we do this there, but we do it at a scale where, like, now assume that you are running this 50 plus models, 1,000 plus features at a scale where you are running 5 billion games a year. That's a very, very tough engineering challenge to solve. In terms of like your API calls itself, like since this is a tech forum, a lot of engineers will be there. When we talk about like your API calls reaching 10 millions per minute, how do you develop your engineering systems for that? And then like availability, like you are doing that level of scale, that solving it for millions of customers, millions of APIs, but you still need to preserve the availability. We are a gaming company. Response, latencies, availability matters a lot. So how you use these AWS and science combined together to solve some of these problems is what I'll talk about. For this particular talk, I thought that instead of taking a user experience problem, since a lot of audience is engineers, we'll say that how do we use science to solve an engineering problem of scale? When we say scale, like before we even jump to like what kind of scale we look at, since this is IPL time, all of us watch IPL and you would have seen My 11 Circle, one of our games, being a sponsored or associate sponsor of IPL. Let's look at a match from an engineering angle there. That during a match journey, what kind of engineering problem comes in, and then we'll talk about how we have used AWS and science to solve the same there. The match starts with registration. Like as a fantasy game, you come to my platform and you create your team. Now the challenge there is, I need to start accepting registration, promising certain rewards, and the actual match will happen 48 hours from now. Now what it should be the size of the contest I run? Should I say that in this match, 3 million people will join, 5 million people will join, or 50 million people will join? Because that's the promise I'm doing to my customers in advance, and if those many people do not come, we'll still honor that by rewards. So if I under-promise, then I lose as a business because more people could have come. If I over-promise, I lose as a business because I'll need to give the reward that I've already promised them. So it's a prediction problem. Now at 7 p.m., since we watch IPL, that's where the biggest engineering problem comes in, which is the toss. Now toss happens, teams are announced, everyone who has done anything on the platform for last 48 hours for that match comes back in. Because we will go out to the customer and say, oh, toss has happened. These are the new teams. Now those players may or may not be in your team there. So first of all, how do you inform? First problem. We have built systems which runs around, which can go up to 30 million notifications per minute. Then comes the problem that once you have informed people, a lot of people will come back. Now when they come back, how do I give them the best offer there? How do I say this is the best offer for you to come and play in my platform? Offer systems runs to around 6 to 10 million offers per minute. Now the come is as people are coming in, these are now millions and millions of connected users on your platform. Some of the proxies run at 10 million per minute kind of an API calls. How do you scale the system? So it's the most fascinating engineering problem to solve, and we'll talk about how we have solved it. The third stage, when the match starts, suddenly the problem set changes from being a scale problem to be an algorithmic problem now. Because assuming 10 million people participated in a match, now for every ball that gets bowled in the physical match, I need to recalculate scores for those 10 million teams, do a sorting on a leaderboard of those 10 million, and give you the out. So it's a very, very different nature of problem there. Now what happens at match end? We say that we work at a speed larger than a bank. Because what happens is, now say these 10 million people, as soon as the match ends, I need to give them their rewards. And since this is a real money gaming platform, while giving the rewards, I have to take care of all the compliance needs, all the taxation needs, etc. So we work like a bank for the transaction, but at a much, much higher scale to say that how do you settle these 10 million people in this small period of time? If I took an engineering view of this, this is what it looks like. Because there are engineers in the thing, I thought I'll put up a metric graph there. And look at the 7 p.m. 7 to 7:02, your load, which was around 300, suddenly becomes 7,500. So that's the kind of spike you see. And that's where what we wanted to present is how AWS and we have worked together to solve these kind of problems there. Basically, it's a very simple solution. Again, use science to invoke a ML model, predict a match size, use AWS tools to actually scale up the infrastructure, and then revert back to your reactive scaling once the match is done, because the key on this slide is efficiently. I could have solved the same problem by saying that I'll scale up the infrastructure 10 hours in advance, I'll keep running that infrastructure, scale down 10 hours. After the match, everything works perfectly there. But that's not what your CFOs will like. So how do we do that efficiently is what the goal was. Looking at from an AWS tools perspective, on your extreme, left, right, my right, your left, if you see, is like a training model which says what the match will be. This is a model that is actively looking at every input as users are coming in, they are joining a match, that what this match size at 7:30 will be. The middle part, the second join, is where I now trigger this model to say, for today's match, what this number looks like. The third part is a combination of Lambda functions and step functions to say that how will I scale each part of my AWS infrastructure, whether it's Elastic Cache, whether it's EBS, whether it's my Kubernetes clusters there. And all of this happens now seamlessly. And once I've scaled for one match, this input goes in, so the next match I become even more efficient in my prediction there. So if, not only we solve this problem, but in a spirit to share what we have done, because we feel the same patterns can be applicable for a lot of this audience as well. We have this published on published as blogs on our site, so I'll encourage you guys to see a lot of work that we do. We do share it on our site as well, so feel free to use that. And we will continue our journey on science of gaming. That's core to our ethos. And from an impact perspective, all this helped us in last 18 to 24 months, where our volume went up 3x, our cost per settlement still went down 46%. That's the best metric you can present to your CFO. And not only it did it from a cost perspective, it also helped us unlock the scale in our journey, where as I grow bigger, as I grow from 10 million to 50 million there, I can still keep using the same tools and same flow, and it unlocks scale for me in any of the things that I do. Thank you. So that's some of the learnings I wanted to share. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Being a Bangalorean, I love this spirit of Bangalore. All of us, engineers, technologists, innovators, creators, we just want to learn, and we'll do anything to learn. Bangalore has seen, so many technology changes and new things, and we always are there that what's new? How can we learn more? So today, let's talk about generative AI. Of course, I know it's on the minds of all of you people, all of you. It is on mind of all our customers because of the change it has done. Well, 2023 was all about what is the generative AI? Which model should I use? What is a foundation model? How large it can be? What can I try about? And then we are in 2024, where it is about what's the security? What can I make as production scale? How do I make this real? Which model is better for my use case? How do I prioritize my projects? And of course, there's so much of responsible AI which is on minds of each one of us. Yes, this is the year of production for most of us. It is adding a huge amount of money, which is, as we can see, $359 billion to the Indian GDP system, and this is an E&Y report which took this out. So the potential is immense, and being Bangaloreans, we always want to catch the best potential and learn. In fact, from a skills perspective, 54%, and I know all of you are going to like this. There's a skills survey that we did on AI in Asia Pacific, and especially in India, the organization said that your base pay will increase by 54% if you have GenAI skills. We all love it, right? So it is proven by all the data that we do. Now, what's the potential? Let's understand what's the potential. The potential is about new experiences that can be created. Definitely productivity in terms of across all the lines of business. It could be in your workflows, within the process, across all the industries, right? It is industry agnostic, the change that we are seeing. It's about the insights of all existing data which would be there. What can we do more about it? And it is also about creativity. We have seen creativity in images, in videos, in chats, and in the text that we had, and how new things can be created. But the most important part is, and I want to talk about three things that are very important in generative AI. The first is the data. You still need to have the data pipeline set up. The data story and the data urgency to keep your data together, have the right data lakes, look at operational databases are not going anywhere. This is the below part of the iceberg, which is, which people are seeing only the top part, but data integration is not going. The data pipeline setting, that is as important for GenAI to succeed. And when we talk about, we have to talk about now new kinds of data, like, vector DBs. If vector DBs are there and you already have operational databases, can you bring them together for faster response times, for lower latency? How do I make my LLM not overloaded with data, but I also create and use databases all across and have a better search so that my LLM doesn't use as much compute, because it is expensive, that we know. So there are new challenges on data which have come, and we have to ensure that those challenges are met by marrying the old enterprises databases that we have and the new forms of data serving. Security. The fact that, what are the controls? Everybody in an enterprise talks about, I don't want my data to train your model. I want to use a good model. I want it to do summarization. I wanted to do Q&A. I wanted to do virtual assistant conversations. But please don't use my data because, I'm very particular about it. How do you do the threat modeling? How do you do interactions with the system so that you have the boundaries, customer's data stays within the customer premises? So these challenges are important, and we have to look at it from a generative AI perspective now. Responsible AI, we have seen about the profanity, the toxicity which does happen, but an enterprise knows that, and if the AI ethics are in place, that how do you ensure that that there are profanity filters, there is no misuse of the system which has been created. So these are concerns which have come up. And hence, we have talked to a lot of our customers, and we talk about this 3-layer generative AI stack, and we believe that no one solution will solve the customer problems. It is actually divided into three layers. The bottommost layer is about actually giving the compute power. Yes, through GPUs, and we are one of the largest partners of NVIDIA, and we have our P5H100s, and also we are collaborating with NVIDIA on a lot of new innovations which are happening. We also have Trainium and Inferentia, which are purpose-built chips for GenAI, because you can train better, you can inference better. So suppose you spend a lot of time on training, but most of the use cases, and I've been working with a lot of customers in India, I have seen that inferencing cost decrease per transaction is what my customers are asking for, because they have taken a model, fine-tuning has been done, and on a daily basis, the operational OpEx is about running the system, which Inferentia helps because it's 40% cheaper from its earlier EC2 instances. So investment in the custom silicon as well as on the SageMaker platform. It has been running with so many of you. You have used SageMaker. You can bring your own foundation models into SageMaker Jumpstart. So that's a mechanism we give because we truly believe that no single model will rule the world. It is going to be about multi-models based on the use cases. If you are building a model, say for your organization, for your customer, you can bring it in Jumpstart. And on top of it, you can have governance. Governance for foundation model operations, having the policies, the standard ML ops that you would apply for. An example of a customer, Braibu, where an AI-powered there's a creative assistant agent which was created to make children become authors, right? If children want to become author, this assistant prods, and this model is available on SageMaker. Actually, it was Llama 3, which we trained and fine-tuned, and we made it available also in SageMaker. I'll come to the second part of the stack, and I'm very excited about this, that we just launched yesterday in Mumbai region, Amazon Bedrock. And this is a managed service. And let me explain why this is special. This is special because it gives you the choice of models. No single model is going to solve all the problems. It has Anthropic, it has all the Claude 3 models from Anthropic, it has Amazon Titan models, it has Meta's Llama, it has Cohere, it has Stability Diffusion. So a bunch of models, because we know that it could be a narrow model, it could be a large model, it could be something which your customer needs and your query can get solved maybe by a smaller model and you don't need a large. So that's what we bring in. We also bring in model customization. We have RAG included into this because we know that knowledge bases need to be set up, and there are a lot of customer knowledge bases across, say, health or financial domains which need to be there for better output. And again, I'll go back to the thing, less compute intensive, right? We don't want to put everything and every query onto our compute or GPUs. It helps in doing multitasks, and I'm going to talk more about it. So like what I mentioned, we have a bunch of models available. There are some customers who say Mistral AI works best for me. It's just a 7 billion parameter model, but it serves my purpose. And there are some customers who are on Claude 3 Sonnet. In fact, I'm going to show you some more on Claude 3 Sonnet as well. I'll talk about Titan models. These are Titan Lite, text, multimodal embeddings. These are trained and created by Amazon. We will indemnify if there are any infringements on these models, because they are trained on data which we know, and because they are done by us. We are ready to indemnify. So feel free to use some of these models. And again, I'll say they are available in Mumbai region, within India, so your customers and you can use them and use them freely to have your data here. Model evaluation, this is exactly what I talked about, that you can evaluate the model which is right for your customers. No need to fit something which is there. Our customers are using Healthify Me is an app. They're using it for an AI coach, a nutritionist, to tell about emotional well-being and all the training that a call center agent needs, or a nutrition coach needs to give to their people. I'm going to show you a demo because I know we are all developer mindset. And I'm sure you have seen AI developers, and you can give any name. The good part is you can give any name to this. You can call it Arun Balaji, because that's the guy who made it. Or you can call it Shalini, because that's, I'm presenting it. So it's white labeled. You give your name. You can create it on Bedrock. This demo is about code transformation. So we ask the AI developer, what all can you do? It talks about code transformation, doing SQL procedure, one Java code to the other Java version. It can do front end and back end development, and you can have new front ends created. You can do security scanning, vulnerability reports. This particular is about SQL to PostgreSQL transformation. And what I'm doing is, basically, there are stored procedures existing, and I'm using Claude 3 behind. I'm also using certain serverless services like Fargate and Lambda behind to get this done. And what we do is that, in this particular case, we're actually transforming 3 stored procedures, which is equal to 400 lines of code, which gets done in a very short span. But our customers like United Airlines is actually using it as a mainframe application, and they have done 50 applications they have done from mainframe to 2 cryptic codes to English, and they have made the custom UI around it. So this is about the stored procedures. But what is good is that it's doing it in few minutes, which is like right now, 2.5 minutes it is doing. But it can do, and it can scale to multiple. And after the code is generated, after the new SQL code on Postgres is generated, you can actually do vulnerability testing. You can have humans review it and see what changes you are, or you can actually feed it to some of your testing tools and generate test cases around it. So that's a demo on AI developer. I'll move ahead. I mean, the choice is, I use Claude 3, but you can actually use Haiku if you just want to do documents. So the choice of models is yours. The name, you can white label it and give it your name. By the way, we also have a managed service like Amazon Q Developer, which does it fully in a managed service possible. So, all choices is what we give to our customers. The other good part is that, we are bringing through Bedrock vector DBs together where the operational DB is, because we know that the cycle, the time that you take to generate and get your answer in a conversation might be very low. So we are enabling semantic vector search across all our services. We have brought in knowledge bases, and I'll just spend some time onto this, that many times you don't want us to ask questions. LLM does certain services, but if there is say, a health information that you want available, or a industry manufacturing information you want available, you can put it in knowledge bases. That's the best way to do RAG. So knowledge bases help us. You don't need data preparation. It connects to various sources in the enterprise. There's built-in session context management, so you don't lead that, so that the multi-turn conversations can keep on happening. And you can have automatic citations with retrievals to improve the transparency, so that people know exactly what's happening. Again, the responsible AI being included into it. So knowledge bases is, what is being also used by our customers, like Fractal. Agents for Bedrock. So, the next part in AI is going to be all about the tasks and the multitasks and the workflows that you can do. You cannot give everything to every task to a foundation model. You need to have, in an enterprise, there are workflows, like, get me this information. It might go to 3 databases and then get that to you. So these are multi-steps, which are agents, which we are launching in Bedrock, where you can execute action, you can search knowledge base, you can go to that, and your prompts get better. Your better prompts, because the better prompts that you give, the better answer that you will have until you get the final answer. So I talked about 3 techniques, right, to make more out of your generative AI. It's LLM and model is not the only answer. You can fine tune, you can have RAG, which gives special knowledge. You don't make any change to the foundation model. In fine tuning, you do make change to the foundation model, but with your own labeled data sets. In continued pre-training, there is no training required. There is no labeling required. You don't need to annotate the label sets. So different kind of things you need to do to make more out of your generative AI use case. I'll give an example of Eka.care. This is a startup on, for healthcare stack based in Bangalore, pretty much in Whitefields also. And I'm sure somebody from Eka.care would be here. But it uses Anthropic Claude. It is about a patient uploading his or her report, like, medical report, say from Lal Path Labs or Dr. Reddy's or whatever. You get your lab report, you upload it, and then it tells you that, what are your outliers. It reads from the image through the model, and it understands and then tells you that, what should be the test which can be done. So what I have done is I've created another demo which runs and which takes it, imagining more and bringing in more knowledge bases and agents. Again, this is AI for doctor, and it could be Dr. Sanjay Tiwari who built this demo, or it could be, you can name it what you want here. This is about the Bedrock agent and knowledge bases uses. So what happens here is that there is a person who's asking about a patient data, and the patient information is being asked about. The patient is Mr. Patel, Mr. Yash Patel, and the information that you are getting out is the session context will be maintained across all my questions. You should check that, and somewhere I'll use knowledge bases. Somewhere we have created agents, which is a multi-steps, and we have made it into a single step. So we are finding out what are the vitals out of the range, and the vitals which come out of the range are creatinine and phosphorus. And now what we need is, we need to know what tests should we be giving to this patient. Now this test information, you need not put it into LLM. You need not create a healthcare foundation model. You can create a knowledge base. And in a knowledge base, you will have all the information about, say, the kidney function test and the test which is recommended. So, the context of the person, the action group, where all the patient data is stored, all that multi-steps is happening in this, and the test which comes out is a kidney function test. Now, there could be a single query only to the knowledge base to say, tell me more about, and this is just to explain to you that knowledge bases are separate, but the context goes, and it can check what a kidney function test is. Now, the last the second last question I'll ask is, what's the medication I give? So again, it goes into multiple steps, and it finds out that this is the medicine information which is there. And now I will also talk about discharge summary. Give me a discharge summary of this patient. Now, the discharge summary for a doctor, it is, the enterprise is like all over. There are multi-databases. There are so many databases. So in a single query, you have to run the agent, you have to go to the knowledge bases, you have to talk to the LLM to interpret, and across all of them, you find out and say that, you know, what's the discharge summary of the patient. Now, this same use case can be applied in any hospital because the patient data can be from the hospital. It's just a context which is getting transferred. It is not hard-coded for a particular patient or a particular hospital or a particular kind of things. But the knowledge bases are what bring the core to it. Now, suppose it could be a thyroid function test or a thyroid. So the knowledge base has to be updated. You don't need to update the LLM. So this is, that's what we created. That's the architecture which, you know, I talked to you about. But I'll go quickly and talk about guardrails. So guardrails for Amazon Bedrock, what we do is we give you actually the tools so that you can put in toxicity or profanity filters and define what you want to do, what you don't want to do. You will have AI service cards, which will explain this use case and this LLM is built for this purpose so that there is no cross usage of that. Another interesting thing, we watermark all the images which get generated so that, you know, there are there's so much deep fake which is happening, but the images generated by our Titan models are watermarked. So you can go back and see, you know, who created it, and it is created by AI. So redacting personal information, the personal identification information, defining topics, what is not right, our profanity filter is actually 85% better than a lot of the models. This is customizable. The tools are all with you. It's secure data. Again, the data will not be, the customer's data will not be used to fine-tune or do anything. A separate container is created and a separate private model is created so that the customer has their own data, data at rest, data at transit. Everything is secure because security is top priority for us. The last part of the stack, which is the top, is your managed services. As you see, we started at the silicon. We had SageMaker and Bedrock in between. And at the top is Amazon Q, which is a completely managed service for development. You can do code transformation. You can have it in business to, you know, generate a lot of summarization, content generation. This is a fully managed service which is available, of course, being used by our customers. So that's the entire stack, and I will talk about what is there for future. The future is multimodal, and the future is agents. Because, you know, video, text, everything has to come together, and we should be able to do all of this across, you know, all video, text, images, etc. There would be regulations which are country-specific, and we should be aware of it. But it's the responsibility of technology and of software to give that capability and customization so that you can de-bias your systems, so that you can make it work responsibly. So technology, you know, sometimes gives answers to the most difficult problems that we have, and de-biasing is one of them. But you know, one thing what I would say is that please talk and find out the feasibility, the ROI, the budget, because technology will not give only one single answer. It's one dimension of an answer, right? The answers have to be across. Whether do you need that project? Maybe it could be done by pure machine learning. You don't need GenAI. But if you need GenAI, then what is at stake? What's the ROI? So that part is there. Train yourself. Don't forget, train yourself, your people around you, and remember 54% base increase, right? Don't forget that. So last, I just want to finish with this, that AWS recommends that no one size fits all. Listen and enable things which are right. This is just the start of a journey. GenAI, since cloud was, we haven't seen that excitement ever since cloud was was created by us. So the excitement is large, but be careful that this is just the start of the journey. There's a lot of things, a lot of new models will launch, but how are you bringing the whole cycle together? What are the breadth of services that can help put your data together, security together, responsible AI together? That's a thought process we need to have. The human is in the center of it, and the humans will continue to make it better so that it all helps us and the society becomes a better society with all of us. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to GenAI.
I'm sure we've had a pretty information-dense morning so far, and we've heard plenty of interesting happenings in GenAI cloud ecosystem. Let me talk to you about something which is equally, if not more exciting, cloud costs. If you talk to any engineer, the key metrics on their minds would be throughput, latency, error rates, but I personally believe that cost needs to be one of the fourth metrics that they live by and that they brag about. It was so heartening to hear CIOs mentioning CFOs in their presentation multiple times, because that's the reality we live in today, and that's the mission of Amnik. Before I get into Amnik and the cloud observability platform, let me give you a quick background on myself. I'm Ankit. I've been developing and managing cloud scale ecosystems and platforms for almost 15 years now, the first decade of which was spent at Ola as a co-founder. I was managing the product and technology out there, and we were building the ride-sharing platform. When we started, cloud was in its infancy. There was no Kubernetes, there was no Terraform, there wasn't even a virtual private cloud. VPCs came later, and you just launched an instance in public network. But anyways, as the evolution happened on the cloud, we've seen an amazing tool chain being developed in the ecosystem. But as the cloud got more complicated, so did everything associated with it, all the decision-making of the architecture, the decision-making of building, deploying, and monitoring. And what also got complicated with it is the builds associated with it. My journey from Ola to Amnik is based on my personal experience of essentially being a technology leader who has an imperative to deliver business value. And in that context, the simplest metric, it's not easy, but the simplest metric to track is the dollar. And that's how Amnik started. Before I go deeper into the platform itself, let me give you a path of the cloud evolution that I went through personally when I was building the platform, and which most of the CIOs go through as they deploy cloud in their ecosystems. Whether you are innovating on cloud natively or you are lifting and shifting an old system onto cloud, the first basic step is essentially the migration or setting up the cloud. Now, in this day and age, cloud itself is not an innovation, but it is the base for all innovations that you can do on top of it. And in the early days, it's all simple. Again, not easy, but simple. You have to just set up the system, set up the platform. But as you get better at it, you realize that you have a problem, which is runaway costs. When you start to look at how the cloud is actually built and how you can use that cloud in the most efficient way, you start to look at the first triaging, which is essentially how do you do rate optimization? Do you use spot instance? How much compute capacity do you reserve? This might also be the time when you remember that AWS has provided you an account manager that you can go talk to for discounts or for more optimization. But anyways, that's the first port of call. The next step comes where you say, oh, okay, I've got a baseline shift in my costs, but it still doesn't control the trajectory of the costs. So you start to work on workload optimization. The objective there is seeing what is unused, what is underutilized. You cut that down. But if you look at all these initiatives, they are still very project-based. For us personally, the mission is to create a system within the organization where every technology leader is able to not just understand the outflow of money, but understand the granularity in which costs are being spread into the technology architecture. It is about giving that last measure of understanding and then using that to create a better journey on cloud. So what do I mean by cloud observability platform? A cloud observability platform, in its essence, is essentially giving you a way to instrument all of your supply chain, bring together all of the surface area of costs into a place, and then giving granular view to technology leaders and business leaders. The most fundamental aspect in which costs should be looked at is cost is a collaborative experience. It's a collaborative problem. We've seen multiple people tackling costs via a center of excellence or via a FinOps program manager, and that is a great start, but for a continuous and a continuously efficient ecosystem, collaboration is at the heart of it. How do you collaboratively catalog all the cost centers? How do you bring that and give debuggability of costs to your engineers? How do you instrument your supply chain and then optimize it across the system, not just your production instances, but your research and development, your delivery, your infrastructure? And then how do you build governance systems on top of it? How do you build the right cost centers? How are you able to understand what would be the cost of that per API call? What is the cost of serving per customer? What is the cost of per team? And then eventually, how do you align your revenue models so your pricing and costing are in balance? So what's the platform about? So the platform at its heart essentially takes in all the cost data that you have across your cloud ecosystems. That is just the starting of it. How do you overlap that cost within your product architecture? For that, we ingest all of your observability data streams, whether it is from your CloudWatch metrics that get generated by your S3 buckets, by your EC2 instances, or by your load balancers or your Kafkas. We take in application performance management data. We take in state metrics of your Kubernetes servers, and we take in any other custom metrics that you're able to generate. We use both these metrics, marry them with the business context, your teams, your business units, your features and products, and your customer ecosystem. And from that, we generate cost streams. Each of these cost streams essentially gives you a stream that you can create a full control system on. These cost streams go into all of the internal systems that you might have, your IT and ITSM systems, your SRE and your DevOps workflows, your business and financial reporting, and even your product and engineering prioritization. You use all of this data to essentially accumulate the right prioritized order in which you can achieve your goal. As you can see, this whole initiative and the interventions that you do goes back into the system and creates that loop through which you can iteratively improve and iteratively keep a tight control on how the evolution of your cloud happens. We obviously work across the cloud ecosystem, but Amnik itself is built on AWS. We use myriad of AWS services, some of which are mentioned here, but we not just build on AWS, but we distribute via AWS as well. We've been part of the AWS reInvent, AWS Summit, of course. We've hosted multiple events along with AWS, and we've also been a part of AWS Marketplace and ISV Accelerator system, and it has been an amazing journey for all of us involved. We've been able to successfully work across industries in multiple categories of businesses and in multiple stages of business evolution, and we've been able to achieve that cost observability framework, and we've seen remarkable results, not just as a control in cost, but also as a deeper understanding of what are the strategically important initiatives, what re-platforming and retooling decisions to make, and we've been able to do it in a way where it's sustainable and it is a system that lives and breathes on autopilot. So this is a cycle or an evolution that you will go through, not just when you are setting up your production systems, but also when you are thinking of deploying your GenAI stacks, when you are building your data platforms or your OLAP systems, or even when you are setting up your content distribution networks, our objective is, Amnix's objective is to go into each of these major cost centers, bring your cost data, your usage and observability data, put it into your business context, and give you a way in which you are able to deliver your product, not just in a cost-efficient way, but in a margin-accretive way.
All right, glad to be back, and that was a series of great customer stories along with Shalini talking about GenAI. The last section of this keynote is around modernization, which again, you would think that isn't really a new topic and a domain by itself, but we are seeing a lot of our businesses face challenges in modernizing. I spoke about my first part of the keynote around data explosion and that being used to innovate. There's only one small challenge that you may face if your systems aren't modernized. And again, to my story 13 years ago, we obviously had a lot of traditional enterprise customers, SMB customers, or even digital customers who've had some level of tech legacy or tech debt because of historic reasons. And that then becomes really hard to change because if you're using systems and designing away from the 80s, 90s, or the early 2000s, they were not designed to have low single-digit sub-millisecond transactions at the database or application level using open source that the public cloud provides you. And just like you can't build taller and taller buildings to reach Mars, you will actually reach a bottleneck when you have those systems where you actually have to go over the hump to actually modernize your systems. And till about a few years ago, it seemed unimaginable that customers that are actually bricks and mortars, like core telcos, like NTT Docomo, would start and go ahead and modernizing their core systems on us. If you've missed the news, a few months ago they announced, NTT Docomo is the biggest telco in Japan, they announced that they would be moving their production 5G and vRAN systems on the AWS cloud, which will be one of the first in the world. And as a part of doing that, over the last couple of years, they've been modernizing heavily at their core systems, including moving from old guard databases, which are punitive from a licensing perspective and on scale in an agile manner in a public cloud world, to open source databases like Aurora Serverless on AWS. And it's a journey that Amazon has had for multiple years. A lot of customers ask us that, wasn't Amazon a digital company right from day one, 29, 30 years ago? Yes, that's true, but we were also a growing startup about 25 years ago, and we started hitting bottlenecks with our monolith. And over time, we have taken the long journey because we know the benefits of actually migrating all our monolith and other applications into our own cloud, which is AWS, along with our AWS services itself. In 2020, 2021, we announced the AWS Firewall, Network Firewall service. And before that, AWS itself used to run on hardware firewalls for some portion of its infrastructure. And so we said, if we are making this easier for customers, surely we ourselves need to be migrating to this AWS Firewall service. And so after offering the service to our customers, in parallel, for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been migrating all our hardware firewall-based services that we had because of legacy dependency issues that we had them until then into the AWS Firewall network. And there was a blog by Jeff Barr recently, just a few weeks ago, which actually describes the challenges we faced in moving that. But after we have gone there, it's actually unlocked the scale that we were hoping it would unlock running on the cloud because it's literally limitless. And so it's gone to about 250 billion connections that we have on our AWS Network Firewall. This is just the AWS traffic that we're receiving from customers. It leads to about 10 terabits per second plus of traffic at its peak regularly throughout the day, throughout the week, for months, for 365 days a year, and hundreds of firewalls and NAT gateways as well. And that's what modernizing to a native public cloud set of services done, because it just removes all bottlenecks and there's no ceiling in terms of how much you can grow. Similarly, as I was talking about Amazon, over the years, modernizing has led to our scale increasing, and our engineers in the company don't even look at what the infrastructure is. It just seamlessly scales. Anyone know what this number means? Any guesses? This is the number of software updates applied in a year by Amazon.com, 170 million. And this is a statistic for a couple of years ago. I'm sure it's changed further, which basically means that there's an average of more than 4 or 5 deployments happening per second throughout the year on an average, if you do the math. Right? It's just fascinating. And the reason for that is going from hitting a bottleneck about 18, 20 years ago when Amazon was growing from a startup to like a largish digital company, the scale of operations increased and it was being throttled by monolith services at the bottom. And one of the ways customers think of modernizing is obviously containers, serverless, because the age-old philosophy is beyond the point, everything fails. All hardware and software at some point fails. The SLAs by your vendors don't matter. That's just an economic, financial agreement. An SLA means nothing in terms of probability of failure of hardware and software. And as a result of going the microservices route, every single component that you might not realize when you're shopping on Amazon.com actually is completely independent of failures. The shopping cart on the top right-hand corner that you see itself is made of tens and tens of microservices, just the shopping cart, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of one of the secret sources of scaling over the years. Now, this is, again, these are great stories by NTT.com or Amazon.com, and we've got many other customers. But at scale, when we actually go to most of our customers, they tell us it's incredibly hard. It's hard to modernize. There's a lot of tech legacy and tech debt that needs to be modernized. And how do you kind of decide the balancing act between having your developers do code updates and feature updates and product roadmaps versus balancing against removing tech legacy and tech debt? It's a hard balance because time is constrained and you can only afford so many developers. And so with Amazon Q that we announced as a release in GA across multiple regions a little over 2 weeks ago, the one that actually excites me the most is Q for Developer. And the reason for that is with Q for Developer, you could actually help modernize your code through code conversion, code transformation, or even otherwise, very, very easily as your developers are working on your future roadmap. And this is one part that excites me most, which is an age-old problem of modernizing your tech legacy, but using Q Developer that does it on your behalf. And I just had a screencast here where I was doing a demo with one of our Q for Developer. It's scarily accurate. So this is a piece of code, and if I say, explain the code to me, it's basically COBOL code that it actually recognizes and takes section by section to tell you what the code is. And then, needless to say that with COBOL code, there could be a lot of legacy. If you were to convert that into Python, all I do is instruct it to actually convert it into Python, and those sections will actually generate a preview, and the code will be converted. And so you can imagine at scale how this can actually help you accelerate your code conversion to modernization, and then you can basically have microservices, serverless-based code base of your applications to actually scale further. Amazon itself is a heavy Java shop, among other code bases that it has had for years, and they actually tested it internally before we released Qt for Developer. And they could upgrade enterprise Java from version 8 to 17 for some of the product teams, and they tested about 1,000 applications. It took them less than 2 days, which with a run rate of per application taking about 10 to 11 minutes max, literally. And it just frees up a lot of developer time. Like that's, again, an age-old mundane problem. And so we are really excited about Q for Developer for our customers to actually have your developers do the core strategic work versus doing code transformation, which is, well, very important for your company to modernize, but it takes away a lot of developer time. The last piece I would say is modernizing on hardware can be harder. It's one of the hardest things because you can't do iterative innovation on the fly, because it costs billions of dollars to do R&D and invent new chipsets. And so AWS is doing that on your behalf. A lot of people don't realize that we are actually a chipset manufacturer now, after we had the collaboration with ARM 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And so working with ARM and Annapurna Labs, we came up with Graviton 2 after Graviton 1 about 4.5 years ago. That was considered efficient in terms of both energy as well as price to performance ratio. Customers told us that they got about 25, 30, 35, 40% price to performance ratio with Graviton 2 versus comparable chipsets from other families. That buoyed us to actually create a roadmap for ARM processors, just like we have with Intel and AMD. And we released Graviton 3 18 months ago, which was 25% faster than Graviton 2, which is already 40% faster in terms of price to performance versus equivalent chipset. And being encouraged by that, we then announced Graviton 4 at reInvent, which is now 30% faster than Graviton 3. So it just keeps iteratively expanding, probably faster than Moore's law, because we're releasing these chipsets less than 18 months frequency as well. And it's formed this is like a basic part of our 3 chipset strategy, Intel, AMD, and Graviton, and we'll continue, ARM, and we'll continue to make this happen because lots and lots of customers are benefiting from the price to performance ratio. In terms of Graviton itself, it's also reinventing the way you do large-scale things like HPC processing, for example. And so what we thought we'll do is, rather than showing another recorded demo, we thought we'll take a chance. Let's try, the team has built something here, lights please, and if you can switch, hold on, let me just put the demo. The team has built this, and we were very excited about it last night when we were playing around with it. Let's see maybe a pitch in a small scale for reinventing HPC using Graviton. So what we have here is just a small camera set. It's very rudimentary, and a laptop. And I've got just small building blocks, toy building blocks here that I'm going to put this under the camera. So let's see how this works. I was testing this today morning. And I'll explain what the setup is. And so this is just toy building blocks that we have. The camera is actually reading it. What we'll do is with the front-end application, I'll just do a capture photo. Once it's captured, we are uploading this picture to US West region because it was just convenient to get capacity there. And these bricks, the picture that you've uploaded, the bricks are actually capturing this, taking a computer vision model around it, and then processing it to make different combinations of what an HPC output would look like when it's actually put together in a 3D dimension. So if you can switch back to the slide, as this processing is happening in the background and inferencing, this is the architecture diagram, but the way it works is we've got a set of models built on SageMaker that actually do custom object detection. There's a Slum scheduler on your right-hand side that is coordinating all these nodes working together, which is processing the 3D algorithm for it because they actually have to take the 3D shapes into account. There's there's AppSync, Lambda functions and step functions and Lambda behind it, orchestrating this entire thing. And underlying the HPC nodes that are running are Graviton, right? And it's when the processing is going on, it's actually processing about 400 stencils individually, right? To actually look at the different combinations that the 3D objects it can define, which can then be used in engineering, manufacturing, R&D, computational fluid dynamics, et cetera, et cetera. Now again, the space isn't new, but it's actually reinventing the way you do it with higher efficiency, super low cost, and just faster performance by using Graviton processors in the HPC world. So even traditional spaces like HPC are being disrupted by using processors from ARM to do it in a much more efficient manner. So if you could actually switch back to the console here, my podium screen. So as you see, it's actually processed 400 different stencils. That's only for the purposes of this demo. We wanted to make it small scale and something simple. You could go up to thousands, millions of these stencils being processed in a matter of a few seconds. Each stencil, apparently the team tells me, takes about 15 seconds to process. But with 400 stencils, we decided to do parallel processing, and it took about 15 seconds to process 400 stencils, and you can keep scaling it out and finish this in a matter of minutes. Let's see what the output is. So it looks like what it's done is it's actually created different models based on its interpretation of what the building blocks are that you can create, and this can be applied to whatever CAD outputs that you're looking at. And you can keep going on to look at and keep scrolling to see what the different models it's created, what the shapes are. Some of them a little more exciting than others. Is this a unicorn, by the way? Well, yep. It's basically a unicorn or a cat, as was told by the team. And it's created multiple tens and tens of actually shapes doing that. So again, it just took about 20 seconds as I was explaining the slide. It's live inferencing into the US West. But the reality is it's the underlying processors that's reinventing HPC on the fly. All right, can you switch back to the slides? That's all I had for this section in terms of modernization, I think. What we'll now do is hear from another customer in terms of their modernization journey on the cloud. Please welcome PayU on stage.
morning, all. It's a pleasure to be here at the AWS Summit, and a warm welcome to all of you. Today, I'll be talking a little bit about PayU and the partnership that we have with AWS. I'm Narendra Babu, CTO at PayU Payments. I've had the privilege of being in PayU for the last couple of years. We've built some fantastic teams and great technology at PayU. Of course, AWS has been a key partner in our journey. Let me give you a brief introduction about PayU. PayU is a conglomerate, and we provide a variety of fintech services, which can be broadly classified into three streams, right? So we have the PayU Payments brand, which provides seamless payment solutions to our merchants. So we have LazyPay and PaySense, which provides credit solutions to both end customers and merchants. We then have our Wibmo brand, which provides cutting-edge platform technologies to banks and financial institutions. You can see some of these brands that we work with. These are the most reputed brands in India. The trust that they impose on us helps us demonstrate commitment to excellence and innovation. All right, so let me walk you through the journey that we have had in the last decade or so, right? So PayU was incorporated in 2014. We started as a payment aggregator, providing payment solutions to a variety of merchants, both domestically and international, right? We acquired CitrusPay, which also had a significant merchant footprint. So through the combination, we were able to bring economics of scale. This happened in 2016. 2017, we became the fastest growing market for PayU. PayU is actually a global brand. And in about 3 years, we were able to become the biggest market for PayU overall, right? So this talks a lot about the Indian market, the fintech potential that we have here in India, that we should all be proud of. 2018 was a very pivotal year for us. We were able to add a brand new dimension to our business, started offering credit solutions because we got our NBFC approval. This was also the year that we became profitable, right? At the core, we at PayU believe that we had to be fiscally responsible. So fairly early in our career, in our tenure, we started becoming profitable, right? So in 2019, Wibmo joined our family. Wibmo, as you know, is a technology platform provider for banks and other financial institutions. We offer solutions like authentication service, prepaid solutions, payment gateways, FRM solutions, and so on. 2020, PaySense was acquired. We expanded our credit footprint in the Indian market. 2021, LazyPay was acquired, and we started offering the buy now, pay later solution in your e-commerce journey to offer credit solutions, and thereby making products accessible to customers who need credit, right? So at the top, you see companies that were fully acquired and managed by PayU. But not just that, PayU also is a strategic investor in a lot of other fintech companies. For example, we have Fisdom, which is an end-user-facing app which helps customers manage their financial investments. We also invested in DotPay, which is an app for managing your storefront, which helps digitization of the stores, physical stores. India Gold is, again, a fintech provider which provides gold lending solutions. And then you have Vayana Network, which provides lending solutions in the context of a supply chain. So as you can see, that we have a vast set of offerings in the fintech space. This shows our commitment and excitement in this particular space, and we believe that we can make a positive difference to this particular industry. So to sum it up, we see ourselves as a trinity serving three consumer segments, right? So we have the end consumer, we have merchants, and we have the fintech institutions. The good thing is we are kind of leader in most of these segments. Just let me talk about Wibmo, right? So if you are doing a card transaction in India, there is a good chance that that is going through Wibmo, right? So every 4 transactions that are done in India, 4 out of 5 are actually being authenticated through our Wibmo platform. PayU Payments partners with a lot of big e-commerce players in India, right? So, and they work with us for their key sale events. So we actually power Big Billion Day sales and a few other events for many merchants that we have. Of course, we have a fairly large footprint when it comes to lending as well. Being a platform company, it is our goal to ensure that our customers succeed in this digital economy. We also focus on unit economics. We believe that we need to add value at every transaction, not only to our bottom line, but also to our customers. Compliance is an inseparable part of fintech space, so we take it very seriously and we want to be proactive about it. So let me quickly talk about PayU's partnership with AWS. We have been working with AWS for several years now, and we've been a very happy customer. PayU is actually known for its availability and scalability. Like I said, we power many sale events for a lot of our merchants. However, we did have one problem, which is the DR setup. Which we were on a multi-cloud setup earlier, which was fairly cumbersome to manage. When the Hyderabad region came up, we seamlessly migrated to that, and we have a successful DR story to talk about, and that's what we will talk about today. The good thing about our relationship with AWS is it's not just about cloud infrastructure, it's also a lot of related services that we take advantage of, like firewall, CloudFront, accelerator, and so on. Our belief is that working with a single provider for these related services is a lot more cost-effective as well as seamless from managing them. So it's been a great partnership. So let me walk you through the DR exercise that we did in the Hyderabad region. When you plan BCP, it's important to have several considerations as part of your BCP plan. Of course, the objective of a DR drill is to check your availability, even under adverse events. The key thing is when you have an adverse event or you're simulating a drill, how quickly are you able to bring your application back up defines your resiliency. We are living in a 24/7 world, right? So which means that it doesn't matter whether you're in primary or secondary, your ability to scale becomes important. There is some event or the other always going on in the world, right? So it's important that even if you're in DR, you're able to scale. And that's where AWS becomes a key partner for us. Other considerations like cost, a single provider always makes it easier to manage your cost. Then there is security, ease of use, and stuff like that, which we need to consider. What were the challenges with our previous setup, right? Since it was a multi-cloud setup, obviously there were compatibility issues between different services. So a lot of custom solutions that we had to put to make this whole setup work. Now this makes the design very cumbersome. It also causes like errors and data loss and things like that. It's hard to test, hard to maintain. In all, it was not a pleasant experience that we had. We were looking for something better. When we did move to the Hyderabad region, right, so we had several advantages, right? So one of the big things is managing your data replication across 2 data centers. That pain was taken away, and we had a seamless way to replicate our data without almost any data loss and no performance overhead either. And the number of DBAs that we had to deploy to manage failover, backups was significantly streamlined because of automation. Because we were in a single cloud setup, hardware provisioning automation became much simpler as well. Overall, it was a great, simple design that we are in today. What was the impact of all of this? We had about 75% reduction in downtime, significant reduction in cost, almost zero data loss, like I said. In my tenure at PayU, this is one of the biggest compliance exercises that we underwent, and I was pleasantly surprised that we could do it with such ease. Thank you.
Hey everyone, good to be here. Enjoying some of the other keynotes as well. I'll just start out with a brief intro of what we do, how we've become a verb, and then talk about some of the learnings we've had. We started out as a digital native, but how there was still some catch up for us to do. And what we are doing in terms of our focus to serve our customers better. I'm Madhu. I'm the CTO of Swiggy, been with Swiggy for about 6 years. And prior to this, I was with a couple of companies, including Amazon. And it's been a fantastic journey. Swiggy is like a 10-year-old company. And for a lot of people, Swiggy started out as a food delivery company. And today, we've got offerings across food delivery, across quick commerce, and dining out. What binds all of this together is we want to elevate the convenience in the life of our customers. So any place where you're doing things that don't necessarily add value, undifferentiated things, I believe a lot of the technologists in this room understand what these mean. We want to get in, take that friction out, and allow you to live it up. Purely in terms of the growth of the company, we've been delighted to serve over 3 billion orders, be in north of 650 cities, and close to 4 lakh restaurant partners now, delivery partners, and it's been a terrific journey. Some of the stats are a little dated, given we've seen and continue to see a lot of growth. Let's start with a brief timeline of what we did. As I said, we started off with the food delivery space. And then Instamart, one of those offerings where at the time wasn't really clear what it would do to our customers' buying patterns. If there's one analogy I've used internally as well, and very relevant to, I don't know how many of you started your journey in a pre-AWS era, but there were fun times where you had to do something called fleet planning, project out what you need to do 3 months out, kind of like the grocery shopping pre-Instamart era, where you need to figure out, is somebody visiting, what's your weekly ration going to look like, what are you going to get, to today where we hear some really fun anecdotes from our customers where a lot of times they order in when either they start cooking or the cook's already in the house and they realize, hey, I'm missing onions. And they're delighted to see that they get these delivered in sub 10 minutes. Then we also have our loyalty program launch as well as our co-branded card and our acquisition of Dine Out. That's been, again, helping us get into places where erstwhile there was some friction for consumers, and we've been able to make reservations, paying for bills much easier. Now, that's been our business journey, and you'll see that this would have your usual suspects in terms of, given that we started out on AWS, we started with more decoupled architecture, microservices, the standard things you expect a digital native to have. And we felt pretty good about not having to have a burden of legacy and being able to innovate with this start. And we did, and we built a lot of these things, scaled massively, got some of our business units profitable. But then one of the tricks we missed was we didn't continuously look at whether all the things we were doing were differentiated. And this led to us doing things which probably didn't need to be done, were undifferentiated, but newer offerings that were available from AWS, like Managed Prometheus. And then we also had some legacy decisions in terms of going with resources which were more, or actually which were less dynamically scalable. And given the on-demand nature of what we have, we expect to see rapid spikes and the traffic also reducing towards the middle of the night. And that's something that we've been focusing over the last year or so. And This has allowed us to, in a traditional sense, we became victim of some of the choices where, despite being in a cloud environment, we had to do perf testing because we had our services share resources. We had to do event planning, which was more detailed than what we wanted. All of this time is something that we could actually go and spend on our customers and innovating on their behalf. And that's when we set out putting up a blueprint of what we want to get to. A few things were very, very clear. One, we wanted the performance to be top-notch, which means high availability as well as low latencies. We are dealing with a lot of customers' data, so security was a no-brainer. And given the very dynamic nature of our business, where you'll see customer ordering patterns change quite rapidly in response to both internal and external events, we wanted the ability to scale very rapidly, or elasticity had to be very high, and had to play well with the rest of the ecosystem. So one anecdote here while doing this is we looked at some of the things that we had started running ourselves when either we weren't yet sure about picking an AWS offering that was already there, or picking one of those where we felt we had some internal expertise. And soon we realized these were the things that we were spending a good 5 to 7% of our bandwidth on. And swap them out pretty seamlessly to AWS managed offerings. A particular one that I want to call out is we used to do a lot of prep for IPL, New Year's Eve, and one business as usual day after we had done some of this, right? There was some external event because of which we started receiving a huge number of additional customers and orders. And while we did get some velocity alerts in terms of what was happening, we realized that our systems were beautifully scaling and handling this without us having to do, and this was a scale that was way higher than New Year's Eve. So that to us was the place we wanted to. We are still on that journey. There are a few more things that we would like to do, but it has been a tremendous weight lifted off our backs, and simply doing work that allows us to stay up and offloading that to services on AWS that do this really well for us. And what have we been doing with that time, right? We've actually been investing that time in building components that are differentiated and are capabilities that work across our business units. And we can quickly plug and play them. We call this our Swiggy operating system, or SOS. And this has allowed us to rapidly try out new businesses, and when some of them scale, merge them into where we believe is the right category, or take the learnings from an experiment and move on. So this has actually helped us fund a lot of our internal innovation. And in terms of pure wins, we've literally been able to reduce, given that we have a lot of spikes and troughs, we've been able to reduce our costs by half, while also reducing the amount of engineering that we spend there. And the elasticity and almost the mind share that we had to give to scaling has reduced pretty significantly and allowed us to not hold business growth back and actually be a big tailwind to that. So the key takeaway for us is, for people who are digital natives here is, keep an eye out for the things that are already being leveraged by your teams, and see where you're doing undifferentiated things, and look at what are the new things that are available within AWS that you can leverage to get off that. And second, if feasible, move to like a shared nothing architecture so that you can get pretty high elasticity. So I think the lift and shift part, a lot of people from traditional to AWS do that well. But even within that, for both people who are migrating to AWS as well as the digital natives, taking a periodic look at if we were going to start now, is this what we would do? And rebaseline would be a pretty strategic thing to do once in a while. And yeah, again, the key is, I saw this on the PayU slide as well, make sure that you do things in a way which reduces the complexity. Because one of the key focus for us is how do we simplify things, because the scale at which we are starting to operate now is massive, and any sort of complexity only reduces the chances of us being fast and available. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for joining us for this keynote, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening in patiently for the last couple of hours. We will soon break for lunch. We also have the Innovation Street and Builder demo zone where you can actually get hands-on and have fun with some of the showcases that our builders have had. Before I move off, I just wanted to leave you with a quick thought. We spoke about innovation and rapid innovation and explosion of data. And there's two kinds of innovation that broadly is categorized in the industry. Iterative / incremental innovation versus big bang innovation. Unless you design the next chipset or a small piece of hardware, where it's harder to do it iteratively, in most cases, innovation happens to be iterative / incremental in nature. Right? And with the explosion of data, my anecdote earlier on the 100 zettabytes of data being generated on planet Earth, that will continue to happen as well. However, this entire phase still, if you look at the history of the human race, it actually still falls under the broad umbrella of information / technology age, which actually took a while for us to actually come here. But over the years, if you look at our history from the agricultural age to information age, the amount of time that we're moving to paradigm shift of the human race, of what's dominated this planet, is actually shrinking from 8,000 years to 200 years to 73 years. And I guess a thought that I would want to leave you with is that what is the next stage? Will we continue to have just explosion of data? Technologies like generative AI continue to incrementally move into and evolve organically into other technologies in the future? Or will there be a paradigm shift of not just technology, but the entire age of human race? We're talking about low orbit satellites. Will the next age be the interplanetary age, where interplanetary travel becomes easier, just like intercity travel with the Shinkansen high-speed trains become easier? Or will it be a spiritual age, where we go in a different kind of mode with human beings? Or will it be a superhuman age? Or we will continue with a different form of an artificial age? That's just a thought for you to leave in. I just thought, thank you very much for joining us. Have a good lunch.